You're about to see the application of Rule 403 to evidence of flight. I will emphasize two key points. First, evidence that someone has fled, particularly from law enforcement, may have tremendous probative value because it could reflect consciousness of guilt. Second, however, evidence of flight could also carry with it a risk of unfair prejudice if, in fact, the person is fleeing for reasons unrelated to potential guilt in that case. Along with inflammatory photographs, another piece of evidence that often triggers 403 analysis involves evidence of flight in a criminal case. That is, evidence that a suspect fled from law enforcement may have probative value in a later criminal case against that person. Why? Because it might indicate consciousness of guilt. However, this evidence might also cause unfair prejudice. Suppose the person is fleeing for reasons unrelated to guilt in that particular case. Maybe the person is simply late for a dentist's appointment. For example, suppose I'm your evidence professor, and I imagine this never happens, but you miss class one day. After class, I see you in the student lounge, and you immediately take off without even making eye contact with me. Could this evidence come in against you if you were charged with the crime, a felony in my jurisdiction, of missing a law school class without an acceptable excuse? The answer, of course, is it depends. It depends on whether you were actually fleeing from me and you were fleeing from me because of guilt about improperly missing class. Maybe you didn't even see me and you ran off because you were late, again, for a dentist appointment. Or maybe you saw me and were so upset by my malevolent stare that you took off, not because you were ashamed about missing class. Maybe you were embarrassed about your performance when you were called on last week and feared that I wanted to talk to you about it. This is a classic 403 issue, and the answer tends to revolve around the following topic. The probative value of flight evidence depends on the degree of confidence with which we can infer that the defendant actually fled. Secondarily, that the defendant actually fled because of consciousness of guilt for the particular crime for which the defendant is later being charged. Hi, you've just watched our module on the application of Rule 403 to evidence of flight. Again, two key points were emphasized. First, evidence of flight has tremendous probative value. Second, however, evidence of flight could carry with it the risk of prejudice. Ultimately, it is important to deconstruct that flight evidence and figure out whether or not the person was truly fleeing as a result of consciousness of guilt for that particular crime. If so, it may very well survive a 403 balancing test.